Electric vehicles are in growth, sometimes high growth globally. And I'm here in Norway with Christina Boo, who's Secretary General of the Norwegian EV Association, and really trying to find out, what's happened in this market, what's changing, and why Norway is very much seen as a test lab for EVs globally. Christina, so what is happening in Norway?
Well, a lot is happening in Norway, but I think to sum it up, we've had a quick and really interestingly development when it comes to the sales of electric cars. It has happened quickly. We had a market share 5 years ago of about 5%. So far this year, 26% of all new car sales are fully electric vehicles. And if you include the plug-in hybrids, it sums up to 45%.
So in this last 5-year period, it's been a rapid acceleration of sales here in Norway.
Yeah.
Why has that happened?
Well, Norway has quite ambitious goals when it comes to reducing emissions, both locally and the CO2 emissions. And the Norwegian politicians early on have implemented some exemptions from paying taxes and incentives. But the sales really started growing just after, there were cars to buy. So it really started 2010, 2011, and today the demand side is actually way above the supply. So we could actually have had higher market shares, but people are waiting for new vehicles, electric vehicles.
So how long is the waiting list for electric vehicles in Norway now?
Well, it depends a little bit on the model, but a lot of Norwegians are waiting for the bigger family cars with long range, and those can be, actually some of them are not even properly launched yet, but they've started taking waiting lists where people pay deposits to be in line for those cars. So more than 30,000 people are waiting for one of the newer BEVs, newer electric cars that are on its way coming. For example, the Audi Quattro e-tron or the Jaguar I-Pace. So there are a lot of people waiting, but there are also some models that if you write a contract now, we will have to wait up till 2 years to get the car.
So there's latent demand that hasn't quite been fulfilled yet. What's driving that really? I mean, obviously governments, tell us a bit about some of the government incentives that are having a big impact on that demand.
I think the most important thing is that in Norway we tax emissions. Polluting costs money. So buying a new car, if it's a petrol diesel engine car, you get a high taxes, actually purchase taxes.
That's always been the case in Norway, hasn't
That's
it?
been the case for years. And the higher the emissions, the higher is the tax. Yeah. Most other countries don't do this. They don't tax the vehicles hardly at all, apart from the fuel. Zero-emission vehicles, meaning battery electric vehicles and hydrogen cars, are exempt from paying taxes and also the VAT, which is 25%. So this actually means that buying an electric car is more or less the same price as buying a petrol and diesel engine car. Now that the technology is about to improve as much as it is with longer range, and we're also getting more and more fast charging stations, people are seeing that this works. And this is becoming normal, and we're actually in a mass market in Norway.
Now, if I'm driving on the road and I'm not an EV driver, talking to people here, you feel a little bit like you're a second-class citizen, don't you? I mean, you get toll charges, you can't park in the same places as EV drivers. It's quite difficult not driving an EV increasingly in Norway, isn't it?
Yeah, you get quite a few incentives. In addition to not having to pay the taxes, you are, from a political side, being told that this is a good choice. So you have access to the bus lane, although in the rush hour you have to have at least one passenger. The fuel is of course cheaper, but also several cities have free public charging, and most importantly is that electric vehicles don't have to pay in the toll roads, and we have a lot of those in Norway. So you could save quite a lot of money, but increasingly people are also understanding that these cars are the best to drive. They're fun to drive, they're simpler and easy, and also they save a lot of money on not having to go to the gas station and fill up fuel, and also the maintenance of the car is a lot cheaper as well.
Now, obviously, if you're not Norwegian, you look at the Norway market and you say, well, look, Norway average GDP per head is $90,000. I mean, it's a very, very rich country. Obviously, oil is responsible for that wealth. But you know, what do you say to those who say, well, Norway can afford to do this, other countries won't be able to do it, won't be able to have those incentives because there's a regulatory, you know, obviously there's a budgetary implication for this. I mean, what would you say to that?
Well, most other countries don't use their opportunity to tax pollution. So they don't have taxes on cars almost at all. There are definitely several ways to do this without this having an impact on the budget. And a country like Sweden is doing that. 1st of July this year, they have implemented a bonus-malus system, which means they're taxing the most polluting cars, using that money to subsidize the zero and low emission vehicles. So this is definitely something that politicians in more countries can do, and we have to stop, I don't know, mocking around. We have to start doing what is necessary to get this change that we need. Both for local emissions and our global emissions, to get a big reduction as fast as possible.
Now, with the Norwegian EV Association, I know you've been doing a lot of research for some time to understand your members and their behaviours. What have you been finding out? Because obviously this is mass market now in Norway. These are not early adopters, and their behaviours are quite mature in some ways. Tell us what you found. You know, some of the interesting facts.
Oh, there are lots of interesting facts actually, but I think most importantly is that electric vehicles and electric cars is becoming more and more normal. People are not skeptic in the same way. They really enjoy driving electric. Actually, 92% of the owners of fully electric vehicles say that they really like driving electric. And they also say they never want to go back to a petrol and diesel engine car. But in addition to this, yes, we are in a mass market, or in the beginning of a mass market, but there's still the case that this is something new to people. Charging especially is something new. The vehicle is more or less the same, but charging is something new. And we get a lot of questions about charging. How do I fast charge? How does it work? Where do I find the stations? So although we are probably, the consumers in Norway is maybe 5 or 10 years ahead than many other consumers in many other countries, they still have a lack of knowledge, and we have a great job educating them and helping them with understanding this.
Now, you know, all the data seems to show that 80% or so of the charging will be done at home, on average, but that leaves 20% on the road. What's happening with, you know, I know there are queues sometimes forming at the fast chargers. What's happening there?
Well, yeah, it's true what you say, that most people charge, most of the charging is done at home. But the large majority say that they also fast charge on a monthly basis. So a lot of people fast charge once in a while, and that also creates a market for putting up fast chargers. So this is definitely something that we have to develop, and we have to do faster. We have to have more chargers up, and this is something that Norway have to figure out actually quite quickly, because we are getting more and more electric cars on the road.
So you know, in terms of the sort of the long-term planning, I mean, obviously you have to work at charging cars quicker when they're at the chargers, and also I guess the car manufacturers also have to adapt the technology in the cars so they can take a much more powerful charge much more quickly, just to promote throughput on those charging stations.
Yeah, it has to do with more chargers and faster fast charging, really. Yeah. So this is where the technology is going. Right now 50 kilowatt is sort of the normal speed, apart from Tesla, which has higher. But now we are about to get cars that can do more. And we are already getting chargers that can give 150 and actually up to 350 kilowatts. So charging is becoming more than fast enough in the years to come.
Looking broadly outside of you know, the sector that we're in, which is myself and some of my colleagues, convenience and fuel retailing, looking at, you know, the car manufacturing, it's a bit of a crazy time, I think you said, for car manufacturers. You know, how are they on this huge shift?
It's a huge shift for the whole car industry, both the manufacturers and the dealers, and everyone that's connected to the car industry in any way. The challenge is that it's happening so fast right now, and if they are too slow at adopting to these new technologies, it's not just about electrification, it's also about other new mobility solutions, and of course self-driving cars also coming in the end. So all of these changes are happening really at the same time. It's a big challenge. The traditional car manufacturers have been making the conventional motor for more than 100 years. This is their know-how. This is what they know. This is how they do the thing, and also they earn a lot of money fixing the car for you after they sold it to you, right?
Yes.
With electric cars, this is changing completely, and we already see this having a big impact on the car dealers in Norway. Those that don't have an electric car in their portfolio are struggling. So this is a big challenge on different levels.
Now, we've seen Tesla have a big impact on this market, but we also have been chatting about China and the impact that China could have. Tell us a bit about your insight into that.
Well, we meet with a lot of car manufacturers, both European and the traditional car manufacturers, but also new actors in the playing field. And my worry is actually that the traditional car manufacturers have been a little bit too slow. I think some of them are definitely getting there, are prepared for the shift that's coming, but others will be struggling because they still have to also think about what they're doing right now. And that's why newcomers like Tesla, but I think even more importantly, Chinese car manufacturers have a big advantage. They're just going for it, and they're doing it really fast. And remember, an electric car is really a computer on wheels. And we know how we are, nobody knew that they wanted a smartphone. Suddenly everybody bought one. It's going to take a little bit longer with cars. They are more expensive and a little bit more difficult also when it comes to the system. But this is something that consumers will have as soon as they can afford it. And they will, because the price of manufacturing electric vehicles are coming down at a big pace.
Do you think, looking at it from a government point of view in Europe, do you think governments are becoming concerned potentially about losing some of the highest added value manufacturing that historically and currently still resides in Europe to overseas importers? And China obviously is key to that. So are governments actually beginning to strategically consider how quickly they should be going into the EV market based upon perhaps the fact that some of their car manufacturers aren't quite ready yet for mass expansion? They
definitely are, and if they're not, they really should. And furthermore, the top management of the car manufacturers should do the same. And I think they are also. We are hearing a lot about the plans of several car manufacturers and what they're planning coming ahead. But it is a big challenge for Europe, and especially countries like Germany and a lot of other countries as well, where this is a big revenue on and a big part of the economy in these countries. So they need to adapt, and they need to understand this change that happens, and they need to, first of all, understand how fast this is happening. I believe that we will see, we're facing a paradigm shift really, and it's going to happen faster than most people understand and realize.
And what's the role of your association, the EV Association, in this paradigm shift, Christina?
Well, we represent the consumers. We have more than 65,000 paying members in Norway, so I think actually that makes us the world's largest EV owner association. I hope that will change, because we need to get the consumers aboard in more markets. But we always have been collaborating closely with the industry, with the car industry, and also the companies that are connected to charging. We think that is important if we are to be, succeed in what we are working for, and that is an electric mobility sector. And of course, we are here to help our members, both with help and advice on driving electric, but also with good membership deals and yeah, being there for them. Of course, also we are working politically for this shift that we want to happen.
Well, it's been fascinating talking to you. Christina, thanks very much.
Thank you so much.